Welcome everyone, my name is Manuel Martinez and this is another episode of Career Downloads, where each episode I basically hit the refresh button, bring on a different guest to learn more about their background and their experiences to help you pick up some actionable advice that you can use as you're managing your own career. For today's episode, I have with me Jordan McConnell. He and I connected recently through LinkedIn. I had looked at his profile, a lot of what he had doing. So he is in kind of the FinOps world now, which is something that I've been introduced in my current role. We got to talking, we met up in person. Great guy, has his own podcast about something completely different, which we'll touch on in this conversation, just kind of the blend of your personal life and then your professional life. So just kind of some of the challenges around that. So with that, I'll introduce Jordan.
Hey Manuel, thank you so much for having me. Grateful to be here.
I'm excited to kind of talk a little bit more about you. So I know you and I have kind of shared some of those details, but for you to kind of share that with other people who may or may not be going through the same thing, but something similar, right? I think in every conversation, there's always something we can take away from, something that somebody said.
I definitely agree.
So if you can start by telling us a little bit about what your current role is and some of the responsibilities.
Yeah, definitely. So I work for a company called New American Funding. They're a mortgage lender based out of Southern California. They actually just won, I think they won a lot of awards recently. They're one of the best companies to work for the United States. They're one of the best companies for women to work for the United States, one of the best mortgage lenders to work for the United States. And so I'm beyond grateful to work for them. I'm a cloud engineer for them. And so what that means, and so when people go to their jobs and log in, like Manuel password, those kind of things, and so I work on all the stuff, infrastructure beyond behind that, to allow people to do their jobs every day.
And it's interesting, right? Because a lot of times people don't realize all the work that goes behind. They're just like, I log in, it either works or it doesn't. But there's so much more behind that.
Definitely, and I've learned that throughout my career. There's kind of behind the veil, kind of Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain. There's so much going on, and for people that are interested in this career field, there's so much to learn, and that's kind of why I got into FinOps. Is that I was working on kind of just regular infrastructure, like log into your computer stuff, and I was really interested in the cloud. And so I worked on different certifications, and I guess I got to kind of a little tangent, but I was introduced at a dinner for a guy from Salesforce, and I learned that this person was managing like $100 million, like something like that, like a month, like in cloud spend. And he was telling me, he's like, "Hey Jordan, have you heard of FinOps?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." And so he's like, "What is it?" It's how to optimize, resources, and how to, save money, to provide the maximum business value, to an organization. I'm like, well, that sounds like, something that, because to me, saving money or making money for an organization is how you stay in business. And so with that person's lead, I got my FinOps practitioner certification. I got my focus analyst certification. I went to the FinOps X conference in San Diego last year. Met a lot of great people over there too, and just had a great time. And so I took all that knowledge, and so I took those certifications and all that knowledge with me, and I was able to take that to a New American Funding, and actually, and I was given the opportunity about 120 days after I got there to propose, I should say, a cost savings plan to the CISO of New American Funding himself. And so for folks listening out there, and actually that entire journey was self-funded and believing in myself, and so that's probably one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about is just, having faith in your own ability, and when other people tell you, and don't let other people tell you what you can and can't do. Right. And that's kind of what I did. So the certifications I bought those out of my own pocket. I funded the entire trip to San Diego out of my own pocket. And then when I left MGM Resorts, when New American Funding called me, they were like, "Hey, what you been doing for 6 months?" And I had all this great stuff to talk about. Right. And they're like, great, and we want you to bring all that over here. And so that's what I've been doing. So I've been doing, FinOps work for them, and then also cloud infrastructure work for them. And so, among other things, and I'm just very grateful to work with a lot of smart people and, great team.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk more about that. We had discussed that a little bit, and I'm going to kind of get us a little bit started, and now we know a little bit of kind of what got you to where you're at now, and let's kind of start that journey, right? Like that career journey. So where did you originally grow up, and what did you think your career was going to be when you first kind of started?
Man, so I'm a little bit of a nomad. So I grew up in Washington, on the Virginia side of Washington D.C., Reston, Virginia, Fairfax, and for anybody out there that knows. And so but I spent the majority of my childhood between Austin, Texas, and Las Vegas, yeah, how I got to IT is I'll say that in a second. But my dream when I was little was to be a weatherman on the news, and I actually had an opportunity last year. Closed mouths don't get fed, right? So I was in an event for MGM, and I actually met the president or maybe the managing director, maybe it's that kind of role, but of a Channel 13 News. Right. So like the guy that kind of ran the channel here in Las Vegas. And I was like, hi, he was like, my dream was to be weatherman when I was little. And this is about 40-year-old, so like I told this guy, he was like, hey man, come over. And I was like, well, can my son come? He was like, yeah. So we did all the releases and everything. And that was the most fun experience I've probably had in my entire life. They did my son so right. My son's 11 years old. And they did him so right. They gave him the full kid experience. You got to meet, everybody there. You got to meet the weather people. You got to meet the 9 a.m. morning breakfast crew. You got to meet like literally everybody. We got to go into the server room, see all the operations room. We got to see the cameras, all these kind of things. And so it was beyond fun. And so so in another life, that's probably what I would have done. I probably would have worked in a news station.
Right.
And so.
And I love that you said that, right? Like closed mouths don't get fed, right? And I think a lot of times that's something that I have, especially kind of going through and doing the podcast, is talking about what you're doing, what you want to do, and there's a way to go about it, right? And just be like, oh, again, just general conversation. Yeah. You never know what that can lead to. Like you're like, hey, oh, that's great. You met somebody from TV and you're thinking like 40 years old, what does that matter? But hey, that was my goal or my dream. Had you not said that, your son doesn't experience this. You don't get to kind of see the behind the scenes, but talking about it and he could see like, oh man, this is a good person. We had a nice conversation. Why don't you come on over and let's kind of give you that experience? Exactly.
Instead of doing the whole generic, let's do lunch or it's nice to meet you or give me your card or all those kind of things. Like, yeah, I actually, made it personal. I remember that guy, he reached out to me. He's like, after the fact, it's like, yeah, I really appreciated how, you actually said something real, and actually, talk to me about something you wanted instead of just keeping it generic type thing. And so, and that same vein is kind of how I got into my current role. Near American Funding, I got invited to a dinner. And so, through LinkedIn, and this was really fascinating because at MGM Resorts, I was a hybrid cloud infrastructure engineer, and so and I got invited to this dinner, and it was all senior leaders. It was all CISOs, CTOs, SVPs, and the like. So all C-suite, all senior executives and things of all these organizations from across the country. I believe it was some kind of tech conference and something like that in Las Vegas. And I got invited, me being an engineer. So I got invited to this dinner to talk about AI trends and all those kind of things, a dinner conversation. And I was literally the only engineer at the table and everybody else was senior leadership. I believe one of the person next to me, I think was like the CIO of like Allegiant Airlines or something, like just really big deal people. And one of the folks there was the CISO of New American Funding. And so, and I remember I went up to him and I was like, hi, my name is Jordan. This is the same, closed mouths don't get fed. Because I remember going down there by myself, right? And not knowing anybody there. And just, kind of going, in fairness, I was kind of starstruck at the dinner and didn't really say much at the dinner. But before and after, I did speak to a lot of people. And when I spoke to the CISO at New American Funding, I was like, hey, my name is Jordan. I like my current job, but I'm always looking for opportunity.
Right.
And that's what I said to him, and that just started, and that little chat had me meeting him and one of the architects that he brought with him to the conference the next morning. And then from there we had an interview, but the timing wasn't right. And so 6 months later, again, closed mouths. And so there's an infrastructure alignment at MGM Resorts, and so me and a few other people were downsized, as it happens in big companies like that. And so about a month later, after I got to the San Diego, so I enjoyed my time off for a couple of weeks, and so but I needed a job like everybody else, and so I did one of those Hail Mary LinkedIn posts, as you do, like hey everybody, I need a job, and that same CISO reached out to me and said, hey, are you still looking? And so it's the same thing. And so that's something too, is that ego is not your amigo, and so living in humility, and so by putting out that post, to all my followers saying, hey man, I need a job. I can't, the methods that I've been using so far haven't been panning out. and just having that, that humility to say, hey, I need help, but if I hadn't, sometimes I wonder if I put that message out the day after I left, if I would have started, a month earlier, because, that kind of thing. And so, but I put that message out, and I think, a month later I had a job.
So then originally you thought, I want to be a weather person. Yeah. And, kind of going between Austin and Vegas. So what is it that you originally started doing at first, right? If it wasn't tech. So, for example, like I've had little side jobs, with the first one that I kind of thought was a career. I spent a lot of time in construction working with my dad. Mm-hmm. And then in order to get into tech, through talking to people, a friend of mine got me into working at a casino cage here in Vegas. The reason that happened is because the cage manager knew the help desk manager. So they're like, hey, well, there's no openings there. It's easier if you're an internal transfer. So again, before I kind of really got into tech, I was a cage cashier, right? Like the person who was bringing their chips or, their slot machine tickets, all that stuff. So kind of what started it for you?
Oh, my tech journey, because before it all started, I wasn't one of those guys that when I was a kid that was like taking computers apart and those kind of things. And so it was literally like kind of happenstance. I joined the military, and so that was my path. And so my dad was like, at the time, son, I know you don't like school, but you need to do something. and so I was like, all right. And even then I was resistant to the military and stuff. And then, but I ended up, so I'm in Vegas. So I took, a couple of buses, across Las Vegas to the recruiter station, and did the aptitude test and all that stuff. And so fast forward to boot camp, where they told me all I was going to be doing was folding T-shirts and marching around, which was a lie, because you're getting yelled at and everything. But based on my aptitude scores, they said, in this book, based on your aptitude scores, look in this book and pick 3 jobs, 1, 2, and 3. And so I did medical computers, and I got my 3rd choice. Which is how all that happened. And by choosing that required a top secret clearance. And so they immediately call everybody that you've ever known and ask them all kind of questions about you and stuff like that. And so I had a top secret clearance for like 6 years in the Air Force. I worked at Langley Air Force Base in a network operations center supporting 100,000 people, 15 Air Force bases, all these things. And so one of my dreams is that I was able to do a few cool things like deploy. I went overseas, and helmet, flak vest, computers, all these things. And so one of my dreams was like, man, I feel like I've kind of gotten to pretty high as far as IT goes in the Air Force. I'm a domain administrator for all, for all these people and all these things. And, I'm doing ribbon cutting ceremonies with 4-star generals and things, and like fun things like that. And so I was like, man, my dream would be to, get to this point in the civilian world. And so and that's what I've been doing ever since. And so, I went from airman basic to staff sergeant in the Air Force. So Sergeant McConnell, right? And then I got out, and then right back at the bottom, Cox Communications, headset, my internet's broken, my phone's broken, I can't watch the Husker game because I'm living in Omaha, Nebraska. and so getting yelled at, actually, when I was in the Air National Guard, and so so be nice to your customer service agents, because I would be getting cursed out during the week, and then we call Sergeant McConnell and Sir during the weekend because I was in the Guard.
Right.
So it was a really jarring, time and everything.
So, two questions. The first one is, you mentioned medical, and then, computers. What is it about the medical field that kind of interested you there? What did you think you were kind of
challenged? Just there's one thing that I like is a mental challenge, and so I like doing things that that build new synapses.
Got it. So like high stress, so like, okay, hey, there's medical, there's a lot I've got to learn, there's troubleshooting, there's a lot of that.
Yeah. And so and that's why I like to do right now. I really like chasing being almost the dumbest person in the room.
And I like the mentality, and I think this is one of the reasons that we got along when we first started talking, right? So you kind of climbed the ranks within the military, and then it seemed like you had, again, you said it, ego is not your amigo. You could have been easily said, well, wait a minute, I have all this, this domain expertise, all this knowledge. Why am I starting here at help desk? So what is it within you? Is it really just that challenge that, hey, I can do this again? And
actually, it wasn't by choice. It was the reality of the situation. It wasn't for lack of trying. Okay. And so it was, because I remember the first job I got out of when I got out of active duty, when I actually moved back from Langley to Las Vegas, I got a 90-day contract at MGM actually, and working on the progressive networks. And so I was able to see in real time when people hit the progressive, and so which was kind of neat. And so I did that for 90 days, but it was a contract to hire, and on the 91st day, and I was working overnights, and this is a week before Christmas, my badge stopped working. Nobody told me. They're like, I remember saying hey, y'all, I'm training you guys, I'd like to stay here, is there anything, yeah, man, yeah, la 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 la, and then the 91st day, literally looking through a dude through the glass. Oh, dude, you didn't get the email, bro? Okay. And so there's that, and then and then when I was in the Air National Guard, I, of course, I had a clearance, and so I tried to get government jobs and those kind of things, but it's super hard. And so again, but I had in my head, I've supported all these people, I've deployed, I've all these skill sets and all these things, and so I have I believe in myself, and so literally I've just been grinding it out all the way up. And so they did the hard way. And so I did it the hard way. So yes, I did help desk, and then help desk I did networking, configuring routers and switches the old way, no GUIs or anything, just Notepad, doing static routes and stuff just in Notepad, and then configuring that for people as AT&T, and then I was a desktop analyst for a construction company for the entire country, so I was a help desk for the entire country. So I was 750 people that had my cell phone number. I set up offices remotely, traveled, flew, planes, trains, and automobiles type thing. Just try to get. I would set up an office from literally blank modem, and then have the router and the switch or whatever brought in, wire all that, doing VoIP phones, set up the entire office, and then fly out and then support everybody type thing. So I did all that, and then left, and then worked at the Children's Hospital, and then I came here. Actually, the story about how I got to Las Vegas again. I needed, actually, I left the Children's Hospital, and I was like, okay, it's time to go. I actually have family in Las Vegas, and so I wanted to bring my wife and my son out here, and so I went on LinkedIn, and I started talking to recruiters, and the Cosmopolitan reached back to me, and I was like, okay, cool, this is promising, right? And so then they put a job out, and I was like, oh, a security job, wow, that's cool. And then I applied for it, and then a month later, they reached me back and were like, yeah, you're not qualified for that job at all, but we reviewed 100 resumes in the country, and we picked 2 of them, and you were one of them. And so, based on your experience. And so we want to bring you in, as we want to interview you for the principal engineer position at the Cosmopolitan here in Las Vegas. And then after that interview, they're like, great, we want you to talk, I want you to talk to my boss because I want you to work for her as a solutions architect. And so I was the first solutions architect. They literally, HR wrote it up for me.
And when you mentioned kind of doing it the hard way, or like the older way, right? It's a lot of command line notepad, because I remember around that time where I thought I wanted to be a network person. It was the same thing. Like, okay, I've got to go through and kind of learn the commands, and don't typo, make sure you've got the right port. There's a lot of that attention to detail. Is that something that you naturally kind of had? Is that something that through your time and experience in the military, did that instill a discipline and like I want to say that, like really it's an attention to detail, because a lot of people that I know from the military, they have that, right? Because it's ingrained in you. Now it sounds like you also like the challenge of, I want to try and get better, and I'm going to improve, and I'm going to work my way up. Yeah. But then there's pieces that you had to learn. So I'm just curious how that kind of fit in.
Like, rephrase that for me.
Sure. So the skill to kind of learn and pay attention to detail, and the hard work, you got that, but where did that kind of
I would say when I was younger, I was a procrastinator, lazy, all these things, and so part of it is like it's knowing your weaknesses and then and leaning into those. I would say that. And so the attention to detail stuff is like, a lot of it was taught me in the Air Force. Like, if you can't, fold a t-shirt in 6 inches, how can I trust you to, work in a multi-million-dollar aircraft and all those kind of things. Right. And so like, but a lot of it was just me. It was just, like just wanting to be better and just learn and just I'm losing my train of thought here.
That's okay. So you mentioned kind of leaning into it, right? Like, hey, I'm going to say a weakness or something in the area I'm not strong in, but you say kind of lean into that. So what is it you do? You're like, okay, I'm a procrastinator. So how do you go in?
Yeah. I would say, I'll find something that that I know. Like, and like in IT, if there's like a weakness, or if there's something in my life that I'm looking like even like podcasting or being on camera, some of these kind of things. There's something that, like, I have a speech impediment, so being on camera, I have a tooth missing or something like those. So some of these things are just like, like getting out of your comfort zone and then kind of leaning into it. And so if it's like and I try to do that in all areas of my life, And so if it's growth only happens through the uncomfortable, type thing. And so, and almost to segue the other part of my life is Crohn's disease. So maybe that's it's probably like living with a chronic illness is actually a lot of the fuel and a lot of the way I do things. A lot of the source of, how I am and why I do things comes from living with a chronic illness also. And so,
and I wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit more, because, everybody's different, right? But there's a lot of times where somebody will come across that, right? Like, hey, I have a speech impediment, I've got Crohn's, I've got these things. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I loved about our conversations is you didn't see that as a crutch, as something that's going to hold you back. It was almost the opposite. It's like you were really leaning into it. You talked about it like, hey, I have a podcast with the speech impediment. Okay, I'm going to lean into this. I'm going to go and I'm really going to work harder at it. Now, am I going to be perfect? No, none of us ever are. But you didn't shy away from it. I just really want to know more about what is it that kind of brought that out of you. And again, everybody's different. Like, I have moments where, like, there's certain things. One of the things for me is somebody telling me, oh, hey, you can't do that. Yeah. I played sports. I'm competitive. I'm like, oh, really? Watch me, right? So there's that. But some people it sounds like you just naturally like, all right, I have this. I'm gonna.
Well, I would say, I've had a lot of that in my life. I've had a lot of people try to dictate who I am, and so to the point to where, like, I have just having faith in myself and self belief. Like, I'm not gonna allow anyone to tell me who I am. I'm gonna allow myself to figure out what my own limits are. And so maybe it's more like, and then also with the Crohn's disease, is like, kind of like, like the Incredible Hulk, like, what's your secret? I'm always angry, type thing. Like, and so that's kind of my secret too. Is that like one of my favorite motivational speakers is Les Brown. And he talks about being hungry. You got to have that kind of hunger for success. And living with Crohn's disease, I'm literally always hungry. So I have like so that inner hunger or to actually like discomfort, that's something too. Is like I'm in literal discomfort most of the time, and so it's easy to it's kind of easy to do hard things when you're always doing hard things. Like living with a chronic illness for anybody out there, it's like it's always in the background. So just doing things. Just day-to-day tasks, taking care of your family, going to work, not taking out how you feel in other people, type thing. You have to take all that stuff into account, and then do everything else that you're doing. And so a lot of it is being so that's something too. Is just being grateful that I'm not laid up in a hospital bed, and that every day I'm upright, I get to kick butt, type thing.
And then I'm sure, it's a belief in yourself, but you also probably have to have a pretty good support system to kind of help, with that same thing. And there's probably people that maybe early on kind of believed in you. And can you think of any, maybe a mentor, or a family member, just anybody that kind of helped kind of instill that in you?
Yeah. I've been grateful to have a few great influences, and just that kind of those throughputs, like, and so my mom, and so like shout out to my mom big time, just the kind of person that will always give it to you straight, whether it's good or bad, just honest feedback, which is probably one of the hardest things to find. The people that aren't telling you things because they don't like you, or telling you things because they think you're the most amazing thing in the world, and you're not getting honest feedback. And so that's something I really value. Just having her influence as compassion, empathy, and just self-love, those kind of things. Because there's in the world there's a lot of people that don't practice those things, and so I'm just very grateful that I have that influence as I kind of go out into the world.
And kind of that empathy that you have for other people, just knowing that you have this illness, this thing that you're kind of dealing with. And again, you could easily take out that irritation on somebody else. And again, we talk about, you never know what somebody else is going through. If you did lash out, like, okay, is it really me that you're mad at? Is it something else? But again, it seems like you do a pretty good job of being able to manage kind of like internally, like, yes, I'm feeling frustrated, and maybe there's external frustrations. That's got to be an additional challenge that most people don't deal with, right? I mean, there's already the pressure of job, there's already the pressure of family, but now you've got this added thing, and that's got to, just talking to you, I see it does both things, right? It makes you more empathetic for other people, which now you're adding another layer, right? So again, it's one of the things that in our conversation, I'm like, man, this person is just so awesome. Like, Jordan's great because not only is he just a good person, he's learning, like we share similar mindset of like, hey, I'm going to learn. I will invest in myself, because again, I heard a recent quote on somebody, it was like through social media, and I was like, oh my gosh, other people's opinions aren't going to pay my bills. Facts. Right? So it's a lot of that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, that's so true. But then you still manage this. It's not like you're coming into work like, I can't do this today. Like, I have a flare up. And sure, I'm not saying that you don't have moments where you need accommodations, but again, you don't use it as a crutch. It almost continues to fuel you. So that's just, I'm in amazement of doing that.
Well, thank you. And I say, I'm human like everybody else. I have challenges. I have a couple of things. I've had 2 feet of my colon taken out. I've had my appendix taken out. I've had my ileum taken out. So like for the last 17 years, almost. Like I've been living with daily symptoms, daily, moment to moment, every day, and so that's again always in the background. But as far as how kind of a little bit what you're saying too is that don't my mom used to tell me that, be careful who you make an outside authority on your life.
Interesting.
It's good to I would say it's extremely important to have someone that that you allow to tell you about yourself, but be very careful who that person is, because again, if they're jealous of you or they're envious of you, you're not going to get the kind of feedback that you want, type thing.
And I've heard that, and sometimes if you almost want to have different people, like multiple people, right? Like obviously not, you don't want a council of 20, but at least, 3, 4, 5, because then you are able to kind of discern, like, okay, if these different people, right? So like, let's say I could have my wife, I could have somebody at work, I could have a friend. If you're hearing the same thing, you're like about, like, man, you're miserable, or you're being a jerk lately. If you're hearing it from 3 different people, you're like, well, wait a minute.
Right.
Now I've got to do some introspection.
Exactly. Is the poop on my shoe?
Right.
Right. Right. So.
And that's interesting. So do you have people like that you're like, okay?
Definitely. I said, it's the reason I love my wife so much. I want people around me that, tell me the truth. I can take the truth. And so, so just getting honest feedback. My son, that presentation that I did for my job. I remember, I actually had my 11-year-old look at the slide deck, and he was like, actually, Dad, can you move this slide here to this one? And this one looks better here. That's a great idea, man. So that's something too, is that, good advice can come from a lot of places too. Right. And, but what you were saying earlier about, how I kind of, maintain, with my health and stuff is, it is a strong support system. I'm grateful to work. I'm grateful to work from home. And but is this not I wouldn't say like a victim mindset, because that gets kind of abused, but just knowing that I can conquer my adversity, that I won't let any person, place, or thing stop me from my goals. Actually, my goals and what I want to get accomplished are bigger than how I feel.
Yeah.
Right. There's been times people don't know. So, anybody watching this and stuff, there's been several times in the past year, where, I've been literally throwing my guts up, all night long, because I've had a flare in my stomach, and so I'm just feeling like this horrible, in the dark, and then the next morning I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel almost like, where you think, I'm never drinking again, right? That kind of stuff, where you feel that way, and then like a few hours later, like, wait a minute, I feel all right. So it feels really strange. And so it feels strange sometimes not calling in, knowing how horrible that I felt. And other times too, sometimes actually part of my issue is that I'm sick so often that I don't know what the threshold is to call in sick is anymore. And so that's something that's a little bit true with me. And actually I've had jobs. So I'm very fortunate to I'm on salary now, but in previous jobs, like a lot of folks, they're on hourly, right? And so I imagine hourly with a chronic illness. So you're like, am I sick enough to not get paid today? Right. And then you're like, well, I'm not dead, so I guess I'm going to go in. Or you go in, and so the military too is that same way. You better be on your deathbed, and crawling in type thing. And then they'll say, okay, you can go to the clinic and, that kind of stuff.
I guess you can do your job today.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess, you can get a 72-hour pass or something. And so so that's one of the things that I struggle with is having that cutoff, like, oh man, because I'll say, my wife can say, oh man, I feel horrible, I feel this, or I'll tell my mom or something, like, yeah, man, I feel terrible, and then she's like, so Jordan, did you go to work today? Yeah. So but I feel like it's a sense of duty, responsibility. I'm accountable. People rely on me. I got the work that I do. People have expectations and things, and so and I just I really try to. That's something too, is that people just have people admire you. People it's kind of sad, but people are a lot more interested in your challenges when you're trying to when you're trying to work over them instead of just talking about like, oh, I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick. Like you have to actually be doing something, And but something else too, like with me with Crohn's, the reason I did the podcast, the reason that I did all this stuff is I really wanted to show people out there that like, hey, there is a guy out here who literally is living with with not only a chronic illness, but the impact of a lot of surgeries that took out important things, so that leaves a permanent impact on you type thing. And I wanted people to know that, yes, there's still a guy out there, but he still goes to work. He still takes care of his family. He's still not treating people. He's not taking all that pain and suffering and putting it on into the people in front of them. And sometimes that's difficult, right? And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've never done that, but my journey is not making what I'm going through, somebody else's trouble.
And I think just in our conversations, it almost in a way helps and makes you stronger. Like you start to realize like, well, if I can deal with this, okay, me going and getting a certification, learning these other things, it kind of puts it in perspective, makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I will tell you exactly what happened. So what shifted, because I had this surgery in 2009, and again, that was 18 inches of my colon. I was in and out of the emergency room multiple times that year. It was horrible, and so after that surgery, nobody actually told me that I could never eat anything pretty much ever, like any regular food. I could never eat never eat anything ever again. And so nobody told me that. So I literally started just eating normal again after the surgery, and it was just sick for literally years. Going to the bathroom every hour or two, 24 hours a day, all night long, all day long, every couple of hours for like years. It's just miserable, right? And so like and then I actually got in the Crohn's and IBD world, they do like biologics, they do like infusions and stuff. And so I was on this medicine called Remicade, and so I'm literally sitting in the doctor's office, getting an IV infusion with a laptop still working, still doing it, right? And so I have pictures of that, but after all of that, they were like, Jordan, your blood work looks great, you look fine. I feel terrible though, and they found out since I had so much stuff taken out of me. They're like, oh, you also have bile acid malabsorption. So you need this powder. And so I took this powder, and I was like, oh my God, I actually can go to the bathroom once a day or normally versus, every hour or two, like for 24 hours. And so it was like a complete, like, anything is possible. Like I felt so good after that. Like I actually felt good for the first time in years. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like literally anything is possible. I'm going to go on Instagram and start talking about my life, that kind of stuff, that kind of thing. And so I did that. And then I started, going on Instagram lives, and then I started doing the podcast, and then started talking to other people around, the world and everything. And that's kind of what the catalyst though was that powder, which I still take today, and that's the thing. I take this powder supposed to take it every morning and every night. Because if I don't, I'm sick. And so, and again, we're all human. So that's the thing too. So you can take this thing every day, every morning, every night, every morning, every night, and then you're like, oh, and then one day you're like, I feel really sick. Why is I didn't take my powder. But it's kind of but so I since I'm human, I challenge I try not. I can be very hard on myself, kind of like the shoulda, woulda, coulda energy, or like I know I'm not a robot, but it's almost I almost need to be a robot to do all these things to to feel good. And so to everybody listening, just try to be kind to yourselves.
So then now you're here at Cosmo, and then you've gotten this role that it seemed like it was tailored for you based on, again, all your experiences, all this resiliency, and kind of investing in yourself and kind of continuing to learn. So in that role, like what were some of the things that you gained out of that role, and what were some of the challenges?
Yeah, like the I would say that probably the biggest challenges were just working in a very large corporation like that. Actually, just moving from Omaha to Las Vegas, that's probably the bigger challenge is moving from a city like Omaha, Nebraska to Las Vegas and then hitting the ground running. That was a big one. Like just it was a very big challenge because the job that I had, the Cosmopolitan, I was the first one to do it. And so there was no blueprint at all. And so, and then everybody's trying to keep the lights on and stuff. And so just trying to work with leadership, they try to get your projects done. So it was just a case study in being resourceful. And so and I learned, just again, working with your team, how you treat people, you can get a lot of things done even in challenging times. I just learned, almost like working in other industries and stuff, working in the hospitality and especially in Las Vegas, the casinos and stuff, these massive properties and stuff. It was really fun seeing behind the scenes. I was talking about this earlier, behind the veil, behind the curtain, seeing all the little the employee cafeteria of like a Cosmopolitan hotel. All the service elevator, all the service hallways and everything, just seeing kind of almost like all the arteries behind the casino floor, all the arteries that make all of that glitz and glam possible. And so I used to love just kind of, just sitting, almost like sitting in the cafeteria. Anybody that knows me, when I used to work there, so I used to love sitting in the cafeteria and, just seeing, the lifeguards and the security and, everybody just kind of mingling around is feeling like, I'm a part of this, even though I work from home most of the time.
And I would say the time that I spent working in the casino industry, that was probably one of the funner aspects of that job is, especially being in technology, you are seeing, so when I was there, I started as help desk and then I was a PC technician. And the PC technician, you're on the property, you're helping food and beverage, you're helping security, you're helping housekeeping. Yeah. Like you get to see and understand exactly everything that goes on behind the scenes. Like people walk out on the floor and there's just machines, it's restaurants, but you go in those back hallways, people are always walking, there's all these rooms. And that was like the other fun thing is I would walk around a casino and be like, I know that there's like, a closet back there. And in that closet, there's all this server room equipment that you don't know. And behind that room that you probably don't know, like that's a shortcut to get to security that also leads to housekeeping that, and again, it's a lot of that information that most people aren't privileged to be able to experience.
Yeah, so it was super fun. So that was one of the coolest things about working for the Cosmopolitan. And then when the MGM Resorts bought the Cosmopolitan, I was fortunate enough to move over, and then same thing. So I worked for MGM Resorts corporate, supporting all the properties in not only Las Vegas, but across the country and everything. And so the same thing, I was an engineer in the city. So I got to go to all the properties here. And so I went from just the Cosmopolitan to like all of them, and going behind the scenes to all of them and checking all that stuff. I'd go to the computer rooms and all of them and stuff like that. It was really just fun. That's what I love about IT. And that kind of work was just being able to touch so many things and learn so many things and instead of getting to be around smart people.
So that resourcefulness that you mentioned being the only one, right? Like this is a new role. It's kind of tailored and written for you. Based on information that you have. So that resourcefulness, is it reading? Is it studying? Is it talking to other people? Like how did you?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. And I would say that, in fairness, it took me a little while to acclimate to get from Omaha to here. And so I would say I feel like I picked up my stride when I got to MGM Resorts. And so, but I did learn a lot, and I had a lot of fun. I did a lot of fun projects at Cosmopolitan actually. And but some of that resourcefulness, again was maintaining the relationships that allowed me to move over, from one to the other. And then I actually in 2023, I went on just to try to keep myself trained up and current. I went on and actually I had this interest in doing cloud stuff even then. And so I went on a certification spree. And so in 12 months, I got like 5 certifications or something like that. And so like I got Azure Fundamentals, I think the Administrator Associate, the Solutions Architect, the Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect, something like I think I got like 4 or 5 certifications in a year, and I didn't know that all those besides the fundamental ones you have to do every single year they expire. So like, so I felt like Mr. Joe Cool or whatever for a while, and then so now I'm working on so now I just got my AWS Cloud Practitioner recently, and so they're still working on that track and everything. So my biggest thing is just like kind of I try to like look at trends and just go for it. Like, I'm not going to wait for somebody to kind of give me permission. Like if I see it, I'm just going to go do it. And yeah, I'm just a big lifelong learner. And I like taking, because of the military, I can take information and apply information pretty quickly, type thing. I'm still able to do that. Like I was an instructor, like I would literally be taught things in the morning and teach it to other people in the afternoon, type thing. I remember doing that. So,
And that's something that, in my experience, taking information, then being able to teach it to other people is the way that I was really able to cement that knowledge and really understand. You mentioned earlier, like where your weakness is I started teaching part-time at the college, and teaching it to IT people it's relatively easy because they understand most of the concepts or they have experience. But when I was teaching it to college students or people who are, again, making that transition into the tech field who don't have the experience or the knowledge or, that understanding, it was a big challenge. But initially I was like, oh my gosh, I don't communicate as well as I thought I did. And I felt I didn't understand the material well enough because I couldn't simplify it, right? Like there's that misconception and we think like, oh, I know all these terms, I know how this works. And I fell into that trap as well. I was like, oh, I know what all these technological terms are, and I would use them all the time. I knew what they meant, but if somebody else was like, well, what is that? And I was like,
it's a thing, it's a thing by the whatchamacallit, by the thing.
Yeah, and it's like all I could use to explain it were other technical terms. Like, oh, it's like this
jargon.
It's like this other jargon.
It's jargon.
But it's really understand like, okay, well, what is that jargon? Break it down, like, the Richard Feynman, or like, hey, explain this to me like I'm 5. Once I got it to that point, I was like, oh, now I have to dig deeper and really understand, okay, what is this jargon? What are these terms? What's an analogy? Like, how can I explain this? And, well, what's your experience? Oh, sports. Okay, I can make a sports metaphor. Or, you're used to like a restaurant. Okay, let me use restaurant analogies and things like that.
And sometimes with me, like part of one of the challenges I would say at Cosmopolitan and some other jobs recently is been shifting from customer facing into more internal IT department facing, and having those different conversations. And so I could have so sometimes with people that are not tech savvy, you can just explain things like a 5th grader to folks or whatever, and sometimes they don't even care, like kind of like a car, like is it running, is my computer working, like that kind of and then other people. And then when you get to like these kind of spaces where I'm in now, they're like, no, I want to know all the details. I want to know. You use all the jargon you want and type things. And so that's something too. Is just finding always. Yeah, that's a great quote that I remember. Always remember where you're at and who you're talking to. And so that's when the military. The military was, remember that you're in the military talking to a military member. You're not at home. And so that's what they always try to tell us. And so so I try to remember that too.
And that's interesting. And when they say that differentiating, like know who you're talking to, is it the type of language that you're using? So like, hey, if you're not at home, so don't use, don't use slang, don't use, like don't be so casual.
And it's also just kind of knowing your audience. Is this, if this is, if this is your boss, remember you're talking to your boss. It's actually, to me, it applies to almost everything in life. And then actually, even if you're at a restaurant, remember that you're eating in public, and people are seeing you talk to, the wait staff and everything else. That's something too, is that nothing happens in a vacuum.
Yeah.
So like, how you treat people is always remembered type thing. So.
Right. It's nobody remembers what you said. It's how you made them feel, things of that nature. And it's true because, and you never know who's watching, like all those interactions every time, like we would go through. And I was talking to another friend of mine, and I think a lot of the big shift for me also came like when I became a parent. Like I always was, I feel like I was always a good person, like everybody else, I have my moments. But one of the things, and it was surprising to me, we were at the grocery store. My kids were little because they were still like in the front in the little seat. Yeah. And I had a cashier tell us, because, you're going through, and we were always like, oh, thank you, please. It's just things that were instilled in us. So when my kids would get in, they're like, oh, hey, like sometimes, do you want a sticker? Do you want a lollipop? And they were like, oh, yes, please. Oh, thank you. Yeah. And it was sad, but it was also a proud moment when we would have a lot of these people, because, you get to see the same, cashiers. They're like, oh my gosh, I love that. And they're like, well, what do you mean? They're like, the fact that they please and thank you. I'm like, well, yeah, that's what we, for me, like that's a common thing. She goes, we have adults that don't say that. So to see this 2-year-old to be able to have that kind of thing. So again, it's not in a vacuum. I'm doing it because, again, this is just a person I talk to, but my kids are watching. So then now I'm like, oh, I have to be a little bit more conscious. Like you said, if you're out in public, the wait staff, it's just everybody. And that's something I think I picked up from my grandfather. Like he was always somebody, it didn't matter who you were. You could have been the owner, so he did construction. Yeah. The owner of a multi-million-dollar construction company, or you could have been, a wait staff or somebody doing. He didn't treat you any different. He didn't see you. You were a person to him, and that was that.
Yeah, I'm the 100% the same way. I don't want to be, I don't want to, people thinking that I'm, doing some kind of like favoritism or like, glazing or any kind of weird things where you're, that's one of the reasons that I think the people have resonated with me in my current job is that, I'm the same way with you and with everybody else, kind of the janitor, the CEO thing, but I am like, if the guy that I'm going to treat everybody that's, with respect and as an adult, so I assume that we're all, serious and, not in some silly stuff. And so I treat people that way. And so, I mean, on that, giving out, respect and kind of showing love to people. I mean, that works 9.5 out of 10 times, So I'm a strong believer, to put out what you want, to kind of be the change you want to see in the world. Like there's a lot of crappy people in the world, so you have to literally not lament them, be the change.
So then, when you found out about, I'm going to kind of fast forward, and I know you touched on it a little bit at the beginning about, being invited to this dinner and again, advocating for yourself. And is that something that just over time you started to kind of develop? Was it a confidence thing? Was it an experience thing? Like, what is it that got you to start verbalizing your goals and saying, hey, I'm interested in this, here's what I'm doing, I'm always listening. And then now you get exposed to areas or jobs that you may not know. Like I didn't know about FinOps until I got into the role I'm at now.
And so I mean, I got invited to another dinner, and that's why I heard that at. So where did that kind of boldness come from? Maybe like that's a good question. Like I would say part of it's the military, part of it's actually it's parents too. My parents go after what they want. Like my dad was in corporate America for a long time. My mom was a small business consultant. She, had a bakery and was on the Food Network and all these cool things. And so, right now I have I'm working on a project with my mom. And so actually one of the things is that, my parents, even at their age right now, they still have new ideas and they still want to do things. They still have new projects. They still have a zeal for life. They aren't playing shuffleboard on a cruise ship. They're like, I want to work on this, entrepreneurship project. And you're like 70 something. You're like, so that to me, that's super inspiring.
So seeing that there's no limitations on, like you're not limited by your current status, by anything like that, your age, any of that.
No, like literally, I mean, the only limits you have are on yourself. Like so, if so yeah, anybody's, don't let other people, tell you, your timeline is your own. So don't let again, other advice that that I live by is run your own race. Work on your own track time. Do not, when you're running, look to your left to see if the person's, behind you, or look to your right to see if the person's in front of you. It's irrelevant. So that's something that I live by also, is that, there's what I'm working on has nothing to do with anybody, nothing to do with anybody. And so I'm not gonna be hating on anybody or jealous of anybody or any of that kind of stuff, because, I'm working on my own path. I'm not trying to take anything from anybody. I'm trying to just do my own thing. So that's something I live by also.
So when you got into this FinOps role, what was different about it, and what is it that really appealed to you? So I know for me, a lot of what I do internally is, I'm part of a technical field community where I help out from a cost savings. Exactly what you're talking about is managing cost. And one of the things is I love numbers, I love math. So it's understanding, I feel like for me, it was that perfect like intersection of technology, like understanding how to optimize your technology and configuration and doing all the technical things to make sure this is running great. But then also, like from a number standpoint, is that the best way that's also going to give me the most return on investment? How am I spending this? Is doing this either going to help the business make more money or save more money? Which again, ultimately is the same thing, but when they're saving, what are we saving for? So it's understanding. And I get on a lot of these calls and they're just like, hey, I just want you to take a look at my environment and see, can we save money? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, hold on. What is, understanding to ask questions. Okay, well, what is saving money? Are we trying to reinvest this for another project? Is it to improve your margins? Is it really just you're trying to save because, we want to save for you don't ever know, right? So like, hey, I need to have a little bit extra cash because maybe in the future there's a project where we'll need extra money. So it's funny that a lot of times asking those questions and getting that information, while it may not seem relevant to like, well, just do this and this is going to save you a bunch of money or change this configuration, but understanding each organization is different. So for you, what is it that kind of interests?
Yeah, the interest was, again, I like challenge. And so and the challenge of, optimizing resources, the challenge of saving money. And I had all this background in infrastructure. And so when I was talking to, I think his name was George Parker from Salesforce, at that dinner, he was telling me about, I was like, man, this sounds like the perfect, like peanut butter and jelly. It sounds like, it's my entire background in infrastructure, and then how to optimize and save money with that same infrastructure. And now what FinOps is kind of turning is not just cloud savings. It's more, it's SaaS. Was it like SAM and HAM, like hardware access, hardware management and software management, and so now there's just kind of this more umbrella stuff like ITFM, IT financial management and things, and so I'm just what I'm really interested in is just trying to cobble. Since I was a staff sergeant in the Air Force, one of the things I've been chasing is to not be an individual contributor anymore. And so is to get into a manager, director, some kind of leadership, so I can actually. I feel like that movie Rudy almost, like where come on, coach, I'm ready, put me in. I'm ready to kind of show folks that I can lead and and make a positive change on an organization. And one of the ways to do that is have a good financial background. Start learning those kind of things. And so I want to be just a person that can take all that infrastructure background, can take FinOps and take some of the leadership stuff that I've done, as an airman leadership school in the military, and some like reporting stuff to senior leadership training, and just take all of that and make a difference. So like as my bio on LinkedIn says, difference maker, and that's what I'm trying to embody is to make a difference in incorporate in my company's life, in my job's life, and also in people's lives around me type thing.
That's awesome. So you've been gracious enough to tell me a lot about your stories, answer my questions. And now I want to kind of give you the opportunity to, if there's anything that we kind of maybe glazed over, maybe you want to do a summary of your career, whatever it is that you think is like, hey, here's how I kind of want to try and end this conversation.
Yeah, I would say like, my story is just I believe it's a case study in, believing yourself and not giving up on yourself. That you can make mistakes, you can do dumb things, you can have challenges, and what you do today and tomorrow is what matters. And not only that, I said you can make mistakes, but your character is what you do every day, type thing. And so, people can try to dictate your reputation, but you dictate your character. Right. And so that's something that I want folks to, that's something I really have struggled with in my life is people trying to tell me who I am, and so this, do not, again, it's important to have people in your life to, tell you about yourself, but again, be very, very careful with who those people are because they can be hurtful, but also extremely valuable. And so seek out and value those relationships of people that, that give you honest feedback. And then, people out there with Crohn's disease, my heart goes out to you. If you're ever looking for anybody to talk to, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to listen to your story and share your story with the world. It's something I enjoy doing. If anybody's looking for, so I would say, the same thing. If anybody wants to learn more about IT or he wants to reach out to me about, consulting or anything, just kind of like you, Manuel, like, I'm more than happy to help you to see if you can save some money in FinOps. So so that's something too, is that, I'm working on just kind of an abundance mindset. And so I'm trying to, just being open to receive, good things in my life. And so, so I'm just always looking for, ways to be of service to others and, just, make money, have fun, help people. So reach out to me. I'm always looking for an opportunity. I'm trying to, go from, striving to really feeling like I'm thriving, kind of my cup overfloweth, so I'm trying to get to that point so I can, pour into other people more effectively. They say, because if people think that I'm successful now, I don't feel like I'm truly successful until I can help other people be successful, right? So so I'm trying to lift myself up so I can, as much as I can, so I can in turn lift others up.
That's awesome. And we kind of share that in common, right? We're trying to help others, kind of current generation, the next generation, whatever it might be, just anybody that is looking for that, because I've had those people along the way. You've brought it up a couple times, and the thing that I want to know a little bit more about is, you mentioned, those people that you have, your close counsel. Mm-hmm. How do you go about, and again, this is just the way that you do it, is to kind of establish who is that person and who is not? Like, how do you...
That discernment?
Yeah, the discernment. Like how, what are some of the things that you look for in people? And again, they may not always make it into the inner circle, but maybe like an outer circle. Like, how do I determine that this is... So for somebody that's watching or listening that says, okay, how do I know that this person like...
Is for me?
Is for me, and not only for me, but just... Okay, maybe they're not in my inner 5 circle, but there's different layers to it. Like, okay, this is somebody I'll listen to, and maybe they can slowly make their way in, or you just start determining, hey, this is a person that shouldn't be in my circle.
Yeah, like to me, like, do you struggle with practicing compassion and empathy?
Okay.
Right, and so I have a chronic illness. So if I say, hi, Manuel, my name's Jordan, and I have Crohn's disease, and then and I say, oh man, I've had all these surgeries, I've been through all this pain and suffering and all this trauma and stuff like that. And then the relationship, and then that's not taken into account, or like there's like some kind of like how sick is he? Type thing. Something like, is he BSing me? Is he this? Like and so like I don't like being around people that try to like, prove, try to prove if I'm sick or prove it, like if I take you at face value, I expect to be taken at face value until proven otherwise.
Got it. Okay. So you start at that. Yeah. That's your starting point.
Yeah. So so with me, it's like I'm going to show you love and respect until I have reason to switch course, to kind of adjust. And so so with me, people don't earn my respect, they lose it. I'll say that. And so, but to me, it's just, saying all the kind of kid stuff, with discernment, like if you're always talking, you can't listen. If you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, you should be listening twice as much as you speak. If you're talking, you're only repeating what you know. If you're listening, you might learn something. You might be listening, you might be hearing, is this person good for me or not? Type thing. If you're actually paying attention. And so that's what I do. And so because I have a chronic illness, I pay very close attention to how people move, type thing, because again, the whole compassion and empathy thing, so so that's, because I don't want, we all deal with adversity. And so, but I want people that, just invisible illnesses, you can't see them. So it's like, I don't want to be trying to prove, that, almost something that's, that I can't show. It's like, what do you want me to be throwing up in front of you right now? It's like, it's like, so that's that kind of stuff. And so I like being around, people that they give you the, they give you the benefit of the doubt, a little bit, that kind of, well, this guy hasn't given me any reason to not believe him yet. Type thing. So that's what I like. And so, so I just try to develop a baseline with yourself about how you treat people. If you can keep your environment in a constant, type thing a little bit, like if you're not in chaos type thing, then every person that comes by, you can kind of, if you say, hi, I'm Manuel, hi, I'm Jordan, to the same person in the same way, and then people come at you differently. Some people come at you with love, some people come at you with jealousy and hate. It's like, oh, I can discern because I'm a solid dude and I'm the same guy to every single person that I meet, to the CEO, to the janitor, right? So that's how you do it. Don't switch up. Be the same. Be who you are. Don't put on a mask. Don't perform for people. If you want to know who's right in your life, be yourself. And the right people, will be in your life, and you also can discern who shouldn't be that way too.
Right. No, I love that, and it's a great way to go about looking at it. And I thank you again for taking the time to come and talk to me and being open about again, there's a lot of things that people are going through, like, that are invisible, right? And I love the point that you've pointed out is I shouldn't have to prove that to you, right? And
I'm not going. Yeah,
right. And I shouldn't have to. You're not going to. And even then, like, if you're sharing it, it's not because
I want pity or something.
Right. Yeah. You don't want pity. You want that, because again, when you told me, like, we started talking and it came out in conversation, and I was like, oh, okay, great. We can continue to talk. I was like, hey, I have a heart condition. And again, there's things that are in the background. And again, I think the way that you communicate it as well makes a big difference. If you're like, oh man, I have Crohn's, like, it wasn't that. It was just like very matter of the fact. Hey, I have Crohn's disease and this and that. Oh, okay, great. Boom, boom, boom. I think sometimes, and I've been guilty of it in the past, is I'm curious, so I'll ask more about it, but it's how you go about asking it. Like, oh, that's, tell me more. Like, what is it? Like, what do you go through? Like, well, wait a minute, that's kind of off-putting. You're gonna be like, well, I don't know that I want to talk to Manuel.
Yeah, because not everybody's like me. Not everybody's done a podcast and help tell their story a lot of times. And again, unfortunately, Crohn's disease is not a fun condition to talk about.
Right.
So that's, I just happen to have a personality that feels like it's, again, the mission's more important than the individual.
Right. Yeah. So again, I appreciate you sharing all this, and hopefully, from the different listeners and people that are out there that come across this, they're like, oh, okay, like, maybe it's not Crohn's, but it's something else that I'm dealing with, and oh, I like the way that Jordan approaches it, and that's something that I can take back and say, all right, let me try applying this. And some things will work, some things won't, but again, finding that out and just sharing that information for others so that they're like, oh, I'm not the only one, or there's similar situations.
Definitely, especially in the Black community and things like that. I want people to know that, people that look like me, to know that you're not alone. Even people that don't look. I just want people in general, that are out there, like, man, I had this condition, and especially I'm a little bit older now, there's still people like out here that look like you, act like you, that have been dealing with this stuff for a long time, that are still pushing through it every day. So again, people can reach out to me, Jordan@CrohnsVeteran.com. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Again, for tech projects, Crohn's veteran projects, just anything. Reach out to me. I'm happy to be of service, and always looking for opportunity to make life more fun.
Yeah, I love it. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for taking the time.
You're very welcome, Manuel. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. And for everyone that continues to watch, listen, and support, again, thank you, and hope that you find inspiration and are able to take away valuable pieces from conversations like this to, may not be directly for you, but maybe somebody, and again, you can share that with them to kind of help them as they're going through their own career journey as well. So with that, continue to plug in and download the knowledge. And until next time, thank you.